L'kutei Sichos Chelek Chav Beis Tazria Sicha Aleph Le'ilu Nishmas Rabbi Yosef Binyamin ben Reb Menashe Kaltman. Today we're going to explore the idea of the kvater. The kvater is the couple that brings the baby into the bris. We're going to explore why it has to be two people, a male and a female. We're going to compare it to the shushvinin, the unterfigers, the two people or the four people that escort the chassan and the kala to the chuppah. This, of course, connects to the parsha, which speaks about, right in the beginning, about the mitzvah of Bris Milah. Es ist ein Minig Yisrael, als beim Reinbringen a Kind leBris shel Avram Avinu, seinen sich mishtadef a Zug Kvaters, ish vi ish teichulu. It is a Jewish custom that to bring in the child to the bris is done by a couple called the kvater. Rabbi in Ha'ara brings that the word kvater originates from the word kavod tir, kavod honor, tir at the door, because they're the ones that bring the baby to the door. So it's the honor that's connected with the door, and from this it turned into a word called kvater, at least according to one opinion. Die Kvaterin bringt dem Kind zum Tir von Beis HaKnesses oder Cheder. The female, the woman, brings the child to the door of the shul or the room whom is mal dem Kind, where the bris is taking place. Und der Kvater nimmt von dem Kind und bringt ihm zum Kisha shel Yo, and then the male takes the baby from the woman and brings the baby to the chair of Eliyahu Hanavi, which is where the bris is taking place. Minig Yisrael Teirahi. A minig, a Jewish custom, is considered to be like Torah. Is muvan as eichad der minig by Eden is Torah, so it's understood that this minig as well is a minig that is Torah. It's not just a random thing that somebody needed to honor someone or whatever it is and started doing this custom, but rather it is something that has the legitimacy and the validity of Torah. V'shleimar, as of dem inyan, das vasad isha chach af iris nitad mitzvah lamol v'chulu kidul kamon. And let's add to this, that this concept, that a woman, despite the fact that she does not have the obligation to circumcise her child, as will be brought up later in the Sikha, is eingeführt bedafka azizal mesayez and to mitzvah milah. Nevertheless, there is a specific custom that she should take part, a woman should take part in the mitzvah of milah. Is da akein smach v'remez v'parsasenu. There might be some remes, some allusion, some indication to this in our parsha. The pasuk that on the 8th day the baby should be circumcised, mitzvah milah, which is the source of the mitzvah of milah, steht in der parsha von Isha ki Tazria. Where is it placed? Specifically in the parsha that begins with the words Isha ki Tazria, a woman that will conceive, v'yolda zachar, and have a male child. And all this whole section is discussing the laws of a woman who gives birth. And the next pasuk, right after the pasuk of Isha, comes this mitzvah of Bris. Even though this pasuk, the one that talks about the mitzvah of circumcision, is an obligation that is upon the father, lamul as benoy, to circumcise his child, whereas the woman is not obligated in the mitzvah of circumcision of her son, as the Gemara discusses it over there. And so much so that there's a discussion in the Gemara whether a woman is even allowed to perform a bris. Because generally speaking, if it's a mitzvah that you're not obligated to do, you can't do it for someone else. Nevertheless, even though the Yoldis herself, as a woman, is not obligated to do this mitzvah, nevertheless, it is in this specific section that this mitzvah of bris is placed, where the husband is not even mentioned. Even in the very pasuk about circumcision, it says he should circumcise. It doesn't say clearly who it is. It doesn't say Yimel ha'av es psar lasei. It says Yimel. It doesn't say explicitly to mention the father. So the fact that this parsha is about the woman and doesn't mention the man, and in this parsha it mentions the mitzvah of bris, but this serves at least as an indication, as an isha that there is an intrinsic connection between a woman And the mitzvah of Milah was the in them was is a in Bris. And where do we express this connection between the woman and the mitzvah of Bris? Is by the fact that a woman is the kvaterin, the woman together with her husband bring the baby in to the shul or to the room where the bris is taking place. So this is point number one, that there is a custom of kvater, and there is a ke'ein smach, a support to this in this week's parasha, where we see that there's a connection between the bris and a woman. Siv Beis is going to discuss the custom that this woman should not be pregnant. In a number of places we find a custom that not to not to honor a pregnant woman as the kvaterin. Kvaterin is the female counterpart of the kvater. Bringing them kind which is the one who brings the child into the shul. Since this is the custom in many places, the Rebbe in the Ha'ara 18 says it's worthwhile to clarify whether this is a minig that is done by everyone or specifically or just in some places, but this is the overall custom. So it's understood that since this is a widespread custom, that it's part of this minig Yisrael Terehi, and therefore needs to be understood. As the Rashba writes very famously, as even if something is a custom that is merely a tradition that was passed down through the elders, it doesn't seem to have a source or a reason. It cannot be diminished or discounted because we have questions, we don't understand exactly what it signifies, what it symbolizes. It's something that was passed down through the ages automatically becomes minig Yisrael Terehi and has to be given the importance of Torah. So the question becomes, what is the significance of the fact that it should not be a pregnant woman? About this minig, that the pregnant woman should not be the one who brings the baby into the shul, should not serve as the kvaterin. There are many reasons that are brought for this. For example, tzlip sakana is a sakana for the baby that the pregnant woman is carrying. It's an ayin hara. Everyone sees the woman carrying in the baby, and they see that she's pregnant. So this might cause an ayin hara. So these seem to be reasons, but it's a side reason. It's not connected to the significance of kvaterin. It just seems that if she's going to be the kvaterin, there's an issue that we want to avoid. But as we know how important and how every detail of Jewish customs are important, is mistaber tzagin the minig is nit verbunden mit azaytik yasiba derchash. So it makes more sense to say that this minig to not be that the woman shouldn't be pregnant is not a side thing or a side concern. Because we're afraid of danger. There must be a much more intrinsic connection between the very concept of kvater and the fact that it shouldn't be a pregnant woman. Now the Rebbe says something very general. The whole concept where we try to find the reason of a minig. According to the Rashba said that a minig Yisrael Terehi, and therefore we shouldn't ask questions. Why do we have to know the reason? So the Rebbe says it is important to know the reason. Because pirush v'diyuk alashon minig Yisrael Terehi, because the meaning of the words that minig Yisrael is Torah is twofold. Aleph, das ist azach, was hat atoike von Torah. It's something that carries the validity of Torah. Ve'ein l'shanis and shouldn't be changed. Al derech minig avesinu b'dino, as we find in other places an expression, we're following the minig, the custom of our parents, of our ancestors, or al teshanu minig avesechem, or elsewhere we find the expression, do not change the minig, the custom, the traditions of your ancestors. So minig Yisrael Terehi means to give a sense of validity to this custom. Beis, but there's another aspect to minig Yisrael Terehi. The minig is eicha heira Terehi. The word Torah milashon heira. It's a lesson. The minig is a lesson that teaches us something. With regards to something about this custom or about this mitzvah that this custom is related to, in order to understand what it is and what the lesson is, we say Terehi. The minig tells us something about it. It teaches us a lesson. And therefore, to understand the minig is very important. So, Siv Beis brings up this custom about not having a pregnant woman serve as a kvaterin. And we ask the question, what is the significance of that? And we emphasize the fact that the significance is important because minig is so terehi, because the minig that connects to whatever mitzvah it is will shed light on to understand better what the mitzvah is all about. So in Siv Gimel, we're going to start the beer. But before we get to the beer, we're going to introduce the fact that this is not the only place where we find this concept of a kvaterin and the concept of not using a pregnant woman. Just like we find this minig of kvater by a bris, there's a couple, a man and a woman that bring the baby in to the bris. We find a similar thing by the marriage of a chassan kala, of a bride and a groom. Which the goal of getting married is to be able to multiply, to have sons and daughters. So clearly there's a connection between marriage and bris, which is the outcome of the getting married and the having a child. So we find a similar thing as a zug shushvinin unterführer führen die chassen v'kala zu der chuppah, that there is a couple known as either in Hebrew shushvinin, in Yiddish unterführer, which roughly will translate the escorts, those who lead or escort the chassen and the kala to the chuppah. So the chassen and the kala each have a zug, a couple that lead them to the chuppah. Also here there is a custom that the unterführerin, the woman escort, should not be a pregnant woman. And in the Haaretz, the Rebbe discusses this, and the Rebbe here is not deciding, is not taking sides on what the minig is and how the minig should be, but he's bringing up the fact that there is a minig, and he's explaining what the minig is and what that tells us about what is taking place at the marriage and at the bris. Steht in Svarim, as the beide menagim b'shaychas anisha muberes. So there are Svarim that bring that both of these customs with regards to a pregnant woman, as is only zayin a kvaterin by a bris milah, that a pregnant woman should not be a kvaterin by a bris, or nit kein shushvinu by a chuppah, and she should not be an unterführer, an escort at the chuppah. Chad min hagahu. So some of the Svarim say that it's the same minig. Al pisa is verstandig, as the tam von die beide menagim is a chadu, and according to this, the reason will be the same reason. So once we understand the reason why it works by a chasana, we'll understand why it works by a bris. And once we understand why it works by a bris, we'll understand why it works by a chasana. So we're trying to figure out right now, what is the reason, what is the meaning behind the fact that we do not honor a pregnant woman to be a kvaterin or to be an unterführer at a chuppah. And we can explain this very, very simply. The Rebbe is going to introduce another minig that actually relates to a pregnant woman, and the Rebbe is going to deduce from that something that affects how we look at the situation at the bris and at the chasana. We find in Shulchan Aruch, Bekeshet to minig kaparos be'erev Kippur, with regards to the minig of kaparos, of taking a chicken and praying for atonement on Erev Yom Kippur. Then in addition to her own chicken, her own hen that she takes for herself, the woman also takes a rooster that would serve as an atonement for the fetus, if she's pregnant. Within that, there are two opinions. One opinion is that there's two chickens, one rooster, one hen. Because if the fetus is female, then the one hen could serve as a kapara for the mother and the fetus. Because according to the halacha, one rooster could serve as an atonement for more than one man, and one male, and one hen could serve as an atonement for more than one female. So if the fetus is a female, then one according to this opinion, one hen is enough to cover both the mother and the fetus, and you need one hen for that. And then you would need a rooster in case the fetus is a male to serve as an atonement for the male fetus. So that's one opinion. The other opinion is we need 3 chickens. Zwei tarnageles, and ein tarnagel, 2 hens, 1 rooster. Ein tarnageles for the mutter, 1 hen for the mother. When a tarnagel, and a rooster and a hen for the fetus, because we don't know if it's a boy or a girl. And this is our custom, as is the custom of the Arizal, as a muberes nem drei oifes, that a pregnant woman uses 3 chickens, 2 females and 1 male. So the Rebbe is going to deduce from this that if a fetus needs its own chicken, or 2, then clearly this fetus is a separate entity. And according to that, we can conclude in our subject with regards to the kvaterin and the unterführen, it'll apply to these 2 customs. The custom is that whether you're talking about a kvater at a bris, whether you're talking about the unterführer at the chuppah, at the chasana, it should be 2 people, an ish v'isha, a man and a woman, other tzvei von yadirin, or 2. The case of the chasan kala, each one needs its own set of a man and a woman. And therefore there's a minig to not use a pregnant woman. Because if you have a husband and a wife, let's say, and they're serving as the kvaters, or they're serving as the unterführers, if the woman is pregnant, all of a sudden there's a 3rd being here. And the proof that it's a 3rd being, because the vlad, this fetus, needs its own chicken, its own kapara. If it needs its own kapara, then it's considered a separate being. And all of a sudden we have 3. Es ist euch mit Beshava. Also, we have a not equal number. Either there's 2 males and a female, or 2 females and a male, but the male-female ratio is not equal. And that might be necessary as well. So this is the explanation why by a kvater and by a unterführer we don't have the woman be pregnant. And again, there's in halacha and in practicality, there are various different situations. If nobody knows, the Rebbe brings in the Haaretz that sometimes it's very difficult. A mother wants to lead her own child to the chuppah. So if it's her own child, then the fact that she's pregnant could cause tsar. What sometimes they will do is they'll put another couple there. So there'll be 2 couples that are unterfeers. Uklape shmaya galia, and the Eibishter knows which is the real one, etc. But these are all practical details. The Rebbe is not going into the practical. The Rebbe is looking at this general minig as a way to understand what is the significance of the minig, and as we go deeper into the sikha, it'll actually shed light on what is the significance, what is happening by a bris that we need a kvater, what is happening by a wedding that we need unterführer. So the Rebbe is saying that it needs to be 2, a man and a woman. All of a sudden, if you have a baby, if you have a fetus, it's not 2, it's 3, which seems to be like a very practical explanation. So in Sifei, the Rebbe is going to ask a question: is the baby the only extra at the chuppah? Like why all of a sudden does this become a problem? The unterführer in other kvaterin is the mutter, nicht der Uber. The person that is the escort, that is the unterführer or the kvaterin is the woman, the mother of the fetus, not the fetus. Mit was ist das anders wie wenn es stehen unter der Chuppah noch? How is this any different than all the other people that are under the chuppah? There's a Rav, there's Eidim, there's relatives, there's the sound guy. There's many people that are the photographer. There are many people that are standing under the chuppah. Vashman isn't makbid of them. No one says you can't have them under the chuppah because then there's more than 2 shushvin. So why all of a sudden is the fetus a bigger problem than that? Is there chilik b'pashtus? That answers very simply. The andere is dort nit al shushvin or the kvater. The other people are not coming as the unterführer or as the kvater, and therefore the fact that they're there it doesn't affect anything. But the fetus that is coming together with the mother is there and the mother is coming as the kvater or as the shushvina, as the unterführerin. and therefore the ubar is there as part of the mother, and therefore the ubar is there as another shushvin. So the Rebbe is differentiating between someone that is there randomly versus someone that is coming there as a shushvin, and all of a sudden is ruining the number and ruining the number as well as the equality of the male versus female. Similarly, we find something similar to this in halacha. There's a din that if a bunch of people came to give testimony and one of them was either a relative or a disqualified witness, meaning to say he had done something that disqualifies him as a witness, then even if it was 10 people or more than that, if one is disqualified, then everyone becomes disqualified. So the din is, this din applies, is dafke wenn sie seinen vereinigt, dafke wenn sie seinen vereinigt alle als edus. It's only if they came all together as a unit to testify. Niskavnu kulam lahoid. They all came together to testify. Oder as sie seinen euch gekommen in Bezdin lahoid, or even maybe when they saw it they weren't together, but when they came to Bezdin they came as a unit. But if in the time he came to, if in the time when he saw it, he did not have in mind to testify, is a dusun for the andere kasher edus nit betela. It doesn't affect the testimony of the other ones. Well, they're card of apostles and nit them together for an aid because they're not in the category of a witness. They weren't there. Sometimes you'll hear at a chuppah when they call up the Eidim, they say just these two to the exclusion of all others. No, not necessarily does it have to be said, but the idea is that in the crowd there might be people that are pasal Eidus, and therefore we don't want anybody else thinking that they are the Eidus and then disqualifying the Eidus of the actual Eidim. So therefore only those two Eidim are the appointed Eidim at the chuppah, and then the fact that there's other people that saw it and they are not kasher Eidus doesn't affect the veracity of the actual Eidim. So from this we see that the presence of other people doesn't affect unless the other people are coming as shushvinin, and then they would mess up the fact that you have to have two, a man and a woman, and not more than that. Kadai Kishaper, and Sivav, the Rebbe is going to say it a little bit differently. Now there's not really that there's a third person here, but it still is not proper because it's not man and woman, and that's it. Kadai Kishaper in the meaning of if you delve a little bit deeper into this, you'll see it in a little bit of a different way. From minig kaparas and but again, from the fact that we brought up this minig by kaparas that a pregnant woman uses 2 or 3 chickens, is moving. It's understood nit as der uber wird verrechnet als a besondere Metzies. It's not that the fetus is a third, totally separate entity. Because then what kind of atonement does a fetus in the mother's womb need? It didn't sin, it didn't do anything wrong. Nor. So what we're learning from this minig by kaparis, that a pregnant woman uses more than one chicken, as their uber is mishana metzias imay. The fetus changes the status of the mother. Moisif in ihr metzias beoifen azia lein vergerechnet mit zwei drei. It adds to her existence that she becomes considered as if she's 2 people or more. Und der Rieber darf ihr Kapara als ein Ishmu Beres bestehen von 2 und later zweiter der mit dem Suffix von 3 Eufes, and therefore her atonement has to consist of 2 or 3 chickens. So to explain this, what does this mean? Hypothetically speaking, if the pregnant woman ate something prohibited, and then it became part of her flesh and blood, and now she needs atonement for it, is what she ate went into the bloodstream from leva isha and then gets pumped out through her own heart, from leva ubar, and it also goes through the heart of the fetus, because the fetus is being sustained by the mother. So therefore, the fetus needs atonement. We need to say the mother needs that her fetus should be atoned for because she has caused something to happen to the fetus inside of her. To say this in other words, more overarching, Tona Sach, was tzarich kapara, kommt al yedei ha'adam, welcher besteht von alle seine Evarim, v'chulu v'chulu miskaprim. When the person is bringing an atonement, he's bringing it for his entire body, for all the limbs and parts of his body. And every part of the body receives atonement through the atonement of the person. And now, when if a woman is pregnant, then all the parts of her includes that fetus. And therefore, she has to do something to atone for every part of her, including for her fetus. Das heißt, the fact that by kaparis, the woman uses, in addition to her own chicken, also a rooster, is nicht der Fall, weil der Tarnagel is a kapara for the uber tamer is a zachar. It's not because the baby needs an atonement and it might turn out to be a boy, and therefore you have to have a rooster, a male chicken. Nor durch dem was teilet zachar. Rather, the reason that she's taking another chicken is because if the baby will be a boy, is igloi milsa. It becomes known retroactively as zayin dekam uberes is irmitzias given azav as fadet echa tarnagel lekaparasa, that when she was pregnant, she needed atonement for the male aspect that was inside of her, which needs a male chicken, which needs a rooster to atone for her. So instead of saying, like we said in Siv Hey, that it's as if there's three shushvinin here, or three kvaters, the Rebbe is saying something differently here. The Rebbe is saying over here that the woman has something inside of her that makes her considered as if she is something more than just one woman. And that thing needs atonement, separately from her. Valpize is moving. So now let's apply this to the kvater and the shushvin. The fact that we don't use a pregnant woman is nit val der uber farzich is a dritter shushvin oder kvater. Not that we're looking at the uber at the fetus as a third. Nor val the isha muberes atzma vart gerechet mer vi ish achas ukenal. It's rather that the woman is seen to be more than one woman. And therefore, it messes up the numbers of the kvater, but the kvater or the shushvin. So the chiddush of Sivav is not that we're looking at the uber as a total separate entity, but it still changes the status of the woman, that she is considered to be more than one, and therefore she cannot serve as a kvater or as a shushvin. This now leads us to another question, which is what we're going to discuss for the rest of the sikha pretty much. And that is, why does it have to be a man and a woman? Why two, and why a man and a woman? That's what we're going to discuss in Siv Zayin. As far as what still requires explanation, why does it have to be a man and a woman? Why can it be two men? Why can it be two women? When you're talking about a wedding, it makes sense. You have a chas and a kala as a male and a female. So you want to have a shushvin, a male and a female. But why is it so important that by the kvater, it's a baby, it's one baby? Why do you need to have a male and a female to be kvater? And as we said, specific base minig yisrael Torah, that there's a lesson that can be taken from the minig that teaches us about this mitzvah. So therefore, the fact that it's a man and a woman actually is integral to the whole concept of bris. So we have to understand what is the significance of the isha as kvater. So before we get to the kvater, let's explore a little bit deeper. What is the significance of the fact that by the chas and kala, by the wedding, we have two shushvinin, a man and a woman? In Yonam von shushvinin bepashtas is, what is the basic concept of a shushvin, of the unterführer, of the escorts? Since the chas and kala were strangers, they were distant from one another. Und der Fall ist, sehr schwer, mit der Busche v'chulu, zu überstellen sich mit Amol in der Matze von Kira v'chulu, was chasna. It's difficult, all of a sudden, to transform and to become so close to each other, when there's a sense of shame, there's a sense of shyness, that these two people that hardly know each other should all of a sudden become so close. The Rebbe darf sie haben dem Siyuf von Shushvinin, and therefore they have the help of the Shushvinin. The Chazayin and Reim, to the Mechasen and to the Kala that are close. Reim literally means friends. Mostly Shushvinin nowadays are parents, but they're people that are close to the Chas and Kala. Kedei ze toimich zayin, to support them, mechazek u'ma'oid zayin, and to encourage them to go through with this closeness. Now it makes a lot of sense why we take a man and a woman and a married couple. For them, it's very simple. It's very understood. As of that to encourage the chassan who is a male, the best person for this is another male. And someone who's married, who already experienced marriage. So too for the kala to have a shushvina who is a woman and who's married. So that's the very basic understanding that since it's a practical thing, we're trying to be there to support and encourage the chassan and the kala. So the best person to do that for a chassan is a married man, for a kala, a married woman. Now, before we get back to kvater, the Rebbe is going to go a step deeper to discuss the spiritual counterpart of this. Everything that happens down below evolves from their source in the spiritual world. Similarly, we're going to see in our discussion, the discussion of marriage and the shushvinin. The fact that by a chas and kala we have shushvinin, we have unterführers, escorts, chaperones. It stems from the fact that by the very original concept of chas and kala, there was a concept of shushvinin. The Nisuin von HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kivyachol mit Eden, referring to the marriage of the Eibishter and Yidden. B'yim Chasanasei, as the Medrash says that the pasuk B'yim Chasanasei, the day of his marriage refers to the day of Matan Torah. Then again, thereby zwei Shushvinin, and at Matan Torah there were two Shushvinin, there were two escorts, there were two unterführers. Shushvinu the Malka, the Shushvin of the king, was Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem. Hashem's Shushvin was Moshe Rabbeinu. Shushvinu the Matronisa, and the queen's Shushvin, meaning the Shushvin for the Yidden, was Aaron. And the Rebbe explains, Moshe, the Shushvin is of the Chassan, is Mekarav Mamshech Lekus Memayla L'Matatzit. Moshe is the Shushvin of the Chassan. Moshe is the one who's bringing the Chassan, the Eibishter. He's drawing down godliness into this world. Similar to the Shushvin of the Chassan, which leads the Chassan to the Kala. When Aaron is the Shushmas of the Kala, and Aaron, by Matan Torah, Aaron is representing the Jewish people who are the Kala. And as Milo, Mekarav, Eden, Matan, Milo, he's elevating and bringing them closer from below to above. Bizas is on the Yachid, very mit Neibishn, so they can become one with Hashem. But Dugman to their Shushvina, von der Kala, like the Shushvina of the Kala that leads her to the Chassan. So Moshe is bringing Hashem to the Yidden, and Aaron is bringing the Yidden to Hashem. And why is there a need for Shushvinin? In this world where the two people are totally separate from each other and they have to be brought closer to one another, they need support, they need encouragement, you need to have a Shushvinin. But what about the Eibishter and Yidden? So the Rebbe says, same thing. The neshama of a Yid descended a great distance from a high, tall mountain until the depth of the pit. In the concealment and the darkness of the world. And the person feels embarrassed or in awe of the greatness of Hashem, and he's afraid to get closer. And therefore you have to have a shushvin on the kala side, which his level and his role is on the level of an isha, which the isha is coming from below, which the expression is the isha fulfills the will of her husband, implying that from bottom up. To Mailazain the Eden zum Eibishtin, which is therefore Aaron as on the level of Isha elevates the Yidden to the Eibishter. When a Shushvin is at the Chassan, then you also need a Shushvin on the Chassan side. Vas Madrigasi Vinyani Upulas is B'chinis Ish, which is Moshe Rabbeinu, who's on the level of Ish. For who Yim Shel Bach, the Ish is the more dominant one, top down. So he's drawing down Elokus to the Yidden. So the Yid wants to get close to Hashem, and he feels ashamed. He feels too low, too far. So Aaron helps to lift them up. Moshe helps to draw down Elokus into this world. And this creates this union between the Eibishter and the Yidden. And once we're on this topic of the marriage of Yidden and the Eibishter, and we still have to get back to Kvater, but once we're on this marriage of the marriage of the Eibishter and Yidden, and the fact that there was a Kvater, there was a set of Shushvinin, Moshe on the level of Ish and Aaron on the level of Isha. Let's keep on going on this topic. Und das ist echt der Tam, was die Shushvinin seien verbunden mit der Simcha Beis HaNisuin. This is why the Shushvinin are the ones that create the joy at the wedding. Warum? Der Inyan HaSimcha nimmt sich davon, was es tut sich auf Adavar Chadash. Because in general, the idea of Simcha, it stems from something new and different, something fresh. Und das ist der Inyan von der Chasna, which is the whole thing of a wedding. When you have a man and a woman that were separated and far from one another, from when they were born, which before they were born, really each part, it's two parts of one whole. But then they were born, they came down into this world and they were separated. And now they're being brought together again. This is a big chiddush. This is something new. The fact that they're finding each other and they're marrying each other. Und die Shushvinin bringen sie zusammen zu Akirav Yochid, and it's the Shushvinin that are bringing this together. Because without the Shushvinin, they might be too afraid or too shy or not ready to come together as one. So the Shushvinin are the ones that are bringing this chiddush, this newness into reality. And therefore, it brings to a great, great joy. Now let's go back to the Ruchnius. When the neshama comes down into this world, it becomes separated from the level where it was, as it was above, connected to the Eibishter. The neshama is based on the mile, like the neshama above, which is connected and one with Hashem. And when Yidden, as they are down in this world, become one with Hashem, durch Teiro mitzvahs, through learning Teiro, through doing mitzvahs. And then they elevate and refine the physical matter. They refine those holy sparks that became distant. They fell down into this world. And now they are in this world and they're being elevated through the Yidden. And of course, we need the help of the Shushvinin. Anytime you want to bring together the Yidden below and the Eibishter above, you need the Shushvinin to facilitate that connection. This creates a great joy. A simcha nifla, an incredible joy. So what we've one more nekuda. This is why in the pasuk it says that the day of the wedding, the marriage of the Eibishter with Yidden, is not just called his wedding day; it's also called the day of the rejoicing of his heart, the day of happiness. Because before Matan Torah, as the Gemara says in Shabbos, there was a decree that the above, the spiritual, could not come down to the physical, and the physical could not be elevated to the spiritual. Matan Torah, when there was the chuppah and the kiddushin, from the Eibishter, between the Eibishter and Hashem, is both this nullified, this cancelled, this decree. This created a bond, a oneness between the Eibishter and Yidden. As the Yidden are in this world below, through Yidden. This creates a bond between the Eibishter and the physical world. Therefore, it's the Simcha, because a Chiddush happened. Simcha comes from Hischachos. Something brand new happened. It became possible for a Yid to be able to connect with the Eibishter from within this physical world, and for the physical world to be elevated to become spiritual. This creates a great Simcha L'mayla, Yom Simchas Libay. So what have we learned? We have learned that the concept of Shushvinin is to support the Chas and Kala to go from a place of distance to a place of closeness, which reflects the spiritual concept of chasana, which is to bring the Eibishter and Yidden together when they're distant from another. The Eibishter is in the spiritual world, the Yid is in the physical world, to be able to bring them together. And because this is something so novel and so unique, it is actually something that creates a simcha, both in the physical wedding. There's a great simcha that these two people found each other and are able to bring to kam lidei kiruv v'yichud, to a oneness, as well as in the spiritual world when they're able to break the barrier between heaven and earth and create a oneness between the Eibishter and the Yid in the physical world. This creates a great simcha. Now let's go to the Klater. Und das, sorry, al pikol anal, sifjut, is euch move on der Technik von Quater bei Bris Milo und Shechus zu Minyan Shushvinin bei Chasna. Now we'll understand what is the significance of the Quater and how it connects to the Shushvinin, to the Unterführers, to the escorts at the wedding. The ultimate and deepest, most oneness of the Eibishter and Yidden happens at a bris. Demol tut sich auf the Inyan from Bris b'psarche on the Bris Eilam, because then the Eibishter's bris, the Eibishter's covenant, is imprinted into the flesh of the Yid forever. As the Bris von Aiden mit den Eibishten is chasum and basar agaspi von Aiden, that the Eibishter's covenant is imprinted on the physical flesh of the Yid. Das heißt, der Chidus von Matan Torah tut sich auf be'efen gali ba Bris Milo. This novelty, this uniqueness that was created at Matan Torah, that heaven could come down to earth. Where do we see it in the most revealed way? At a bris. As al yenim ruchen is lamata, that the above, the spiritual energy, goes down, descends into this world. Und tachtenim gashmi is an eila lamaila, and the physicality ascends into the spiritual realms. Because the gufa gashmi von Aiden wird kivyochel bibris mit dem Eibishten. So much so that the physical body of the Yid becomes one in a treaty, in a covenant with the Yid, with the Eibishter. From the Kishu v'chibu von it mit Eibishter to the mitzvahs, was jeder mitzvah is melashon tzavs v'chibu. Every mitzvah means connection. So really, there's a bond that occurs through any mitzvah that gets done. But is nit nikir as they feel in them gufa adam. It's in the kaima mitzvah. It's not so obvious on the body of the Yid that's fulfilling the mitzvah. Vidas is by the mitzvah famila, where something physically is changed in the body. But that's getech ateis was beer, and then was the Alter Rebbe sagt in Shulchan Aruch at chilas knitzas nefesh zu akdesha is the mitzvah mila, and this adds explanation, understanding what the Alter Rebbe says, that the beginning of the entry of this nefesh is in the mitzvah of mila, because it's at the mitzvah of mila that we're breaking down the barrier between heaven and earth, and a holy neshama could enter into the body. Underriver, just like by a chas and kala, the unterführers, the escorts, are a man and a woman. Because their role is to assist in this oneness, this closeness. The one is representing the chas, one is representing the kala. So too in the source, in the root of the concept of the connection between a man and a woman. In the yichud from the Eibishter mit Yidden, which is the oneness of Eibishter and Yidden, which is being coming to a new level of revelation. At a bris, this is expressed according to this custom. In the kvaters, which are acting like the unterführers, like the escorts, which consist of man and woman, which on a more spiritual level represent the man represents the shushvin, the escort on the side of the king, the Eibishten, and the woman representing the queen, which are the Yidden. So in other words, in the chasana, we see it on a practical level as well, that the chasana and kala are nervous or shy, and the shushvin help them become closer to each other, or to overcome their shame, their fear, the modesty, etc. By a bris, you don't have that aspect, but you have the spiritual aspect. The concept of bris is the realization of the bond of the Eibishter and Yidden. And in order to create the bond of the Eibishter and Yidden, you need a shushvin, mitzad hachasna, mitzad hakala, Moshe and Aaron. And in order to represent that, even in a physical sense, we have a kvater and a kvaterin to represent the shushvin mitzad hachasn, the shushvin mitzad hakala, or the shushvin mitzad the Eibishter and the shushvin mitzad the Yidden, that are in the spiritual effect of what's happening by Bris Milah. And this, by the way, touches upon the fact that the Rebbe said in the beginning of the Sikha, that from this minute we'll understand what's the whole concept of Bris. Because now we have a whole deeper insight into Bris. Bris is not just a mitzvah where you have to remove the foreskin and that's it. Bris represents the realization of the whole concept of creation of the human being, which is in order to create a relationship between the Eibishter and Yidden, and a Yid, and the relationship between the Eibishter and the world. Where do we see this in the most real, most practical way? Is that a Bris? So the Bris is the realization and the revelation of this whole relationship. And therefore the shushvin are so necessary, and therefore in the physical world we have a kvater and a kvaterin to represent that. Al pi zeh move on, but simcha is ayin ikri ba bris milah. And just like we explained, this is by chasana. Just like we said that now that the Shushvinin bring this hischachus, this newness, this novelty, and therefore this a great joy. We'll see the same thing by a bris. That we find that there's a specific simcha by a bris. Was begefindt das nicht by if I say feel by other mitzvahs, which we don't find as much as other mitzvahs. Every mitzvah should bring simcha, but we find something, an extra joy. Chazal expound on the word "sas anoichi elim rasecha," I rejoice on your teachings. Meintas mitzvahs milah. This is referring to the mitzvah of bris. Even though every mitzvah has to be done with joy, nevertheless, sas anoichi, there's a special extra joy that happens at a bris. Bris as the Gemara sagt, so much so that we see it in the Gemara. And this is the Tamas Mizmal Lishmena. This is the reason why the bris is on the 8th day. The Gemara says, "Mipnei ma amra Torah mila lishmena." Why does the Torah say the bris should be on the 8th day and not sooner? Shouldn't be a situation where everyone else is rejoicing and the parents are sad. Which Rashi explains that that the first 7 days the woman is tamei, and therefore she can't be with her husband intimately. And there on the 8th day she can. So therefore, if the bris was earlier than that, then the woman, the mother and the father wouldn't be fully joyful because there's a separation between them. On the 8th day, that separation ends, at least min Torah, and therefore the bris was established by the Eibush to be on the 8th day at a time when even the parents could rejoice. We verstandig from the first lernt man das ab von dem was die Torah stellt rein, und bei ihm ist bin Himmel besar lasse wir parsasenu gleich nach dem was the pasuk führt uns wegen Thomas leider some time and the first explain that how do we know this, that this is the reason, because of the structure of the psukim. It says v'tama shivas yamim, and then it says the next pasuk bei ihm ist bin Himmel besar lasse, implying that the fact that the bris on the 8th day is that it should be after the period of Tumah of the first 7 days. So we see that this is learned from this parsha, and we see that it's connected to this inyan of bris, that it has to be with an inyan of simcha. We even pushed off the bris, so to speak, so that the mother and the father should be in a greater state of joy. What's the connection? Because the whole idea of simcha, which, as we explained previously, comes from something new, something fresh, something different. Like by a wedding, where something new is happening. As that the person leaves the home of his father, of his mother, and he cleaves to his wife, and they become one entity, canal. Where is the ultimate fulfillment of this newness that happens by the chasna, by the bris? Which at that point, the spiritual part comes to fruition. Now, by the wedding, it represents the connection of the Eibishter with Yidden, but it hasn't been completed yet. When there's a bris, and it's brisi b'psarchem, the spirituality is imprinted in the physicality. This is the ultimate realization of this connection, of this bond, and therefore that's the full hischachos, it's the full newness and the full uniqueness, and therefore it has to be with a special, unique simcha. Shleimer as ba'anisha is the adrabah v'baldas command mehila damya v'tosuf katan glach ba'der leda. By a woman, the Gemara in Masechta Avodah Zarah says that a woman is born already circumcised, and therefore everything that would be accomplished through this, because the person's going to ask, 1 second, where do you see brisi b'psarchem b'bris olam if it's a female? And the answer is, according to the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, that from the moment the woman is born, or when the child is born, there already is Kiman Demihila Damya. It has all of the accomplishments of what's going to happen on the 8th day. By a boy is already pre-existing by the female child. And the Rebbe concludes, through the fulfillment of these two mitzvahs, Piri Verivya, was it the tachlis from chasna and nisui, having children, which are the ultimate goal of why a man and a woman get married. Un mitzvahs milah, and the mitzvah of milah is menzeche b'karav amish the geula mitzvah shlema. We will merit the geula mitzvah shlema. Then, as v'zayin the shlemus and milah, we will see the ultimate fulfillment of the mitzvah of milah. Umal Hashem lekechas l'vavkol l'zrecha, where the Eibishter will circumcise the foreskin of our hearts. Und the shlemus b'nisuin. von Eden mit dem Eibishter, and then we will see the completion of the marriage of Yidden with the Eibishter. Shenemar ki b'yalayich chaysayich, your master, your husband is your creator. Well, the Eibishter will become our husband in a revealed way. And then we'll have the Shuzvinu with us, Moshe and Aaron, may it be speedily in our days. So just to conclude, ultimately, what seems like is the goal of the Sikha here is to explain the concept of Ish v'Isha by a wedding, and Ish v'Isha by a kvater. Kvater and kvaterin. But in order to explain that, we have to first explain why it can't be a pregnant woman. And the answer was because we want to have an Ish v'Isha, not any more than that. So that's why we don't have an Isha Muberes do the Shushvina or the Kvaterin. At least that's the minig. Again, as I said earlier, there are variations to how this is implemented b'Peil Mamish. And that's not the topic of the Sikha. And once we understand that there has to be Ish v'Isha, this leads us to understand, and from this it gives us a whole deeper understanding into what marriage is all about. Marriage is an embodiment of the marriage of the Eibishter and Yidden, and gives us the ability to bring that into the physical world. And the idea of Bris Milah, which is the ultimate completion of that, where there is the concept of the spiritual in the physical, in the most real, in the most the strongest possible way, that it is brisi b'psarchem, it is imprinted into the flesh. The spirituality and the physicality become one.